Alright guys, welcome back to my 2017 VHS collection. This is part 2. Part 1 is where I was showing all my clamshells along my wall up there. But this is part 2. Again, all of the VHS's, my whole VHS collection as of December 27th, 2017. I normally do this at the end of every year to highlight all of the great VHS tapes I picked up and ones that have been in my collection for a while. So let's continue. So I said this in the first video, I organized all the VHS tapes or all of my movies by studio. So here we go, we got Paramount over here, Titanic, that's kind of part of a Paramount, that's a Paramount film. We have Universal Studios, I think, yep, all of that's Universal. Down here we have Touchstone Pictures. Yeah, Roger Rabbit, that's a Touchstone film, so we got that. We have Columbia, all that's Columbia. Then we have New Line Cinema, and so far I only have one tape from MGM. And so we'll continue on the other side as we go along here. So as far as the Paramount section, for these slipcover cases, we have Tom Hanks' Forrest Gump. I mean, what VHS collection would be complete without Forrest Gump? My mama always told me life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you find in it. And this, you can definitely find a gem in. It's Forrest Gump, released in 1994. A lengthy movie, but a great movie. Starring the one and only Tom Hanks. I mean, come on. It's a great. Ugh, that's like 4 greats in a row. It's that great of a movie. Check it out. School of Rock, starring Jack Black when he was actually funny. Made in 2003. And I believe this tape was released, I think, a year later in 2004. Now, this VHS I've actually had for a long time. I've had this VHS since I was about 4 or 5. When this movie came out, I didn't see it in theaters, but I'm like, Dad, I want School of Rock. And I remember going to the video store in our local area here and picking it out and being so excited to finally have it. Even though I knew that it wasn't a movie that was for my age group because it's rated PG-13, I didn't care. It had music, it had guitars, and it had rock and roll, and I was all for it. And I know it's from my childhood because of this. There's a rip right there. That can only be from a 5-year-old that loves this movie to death. To literally rip it. Next we have Wayne's World, another rock and roll driven movie, but I actually got this later in my life. When I was collecting 90s movies. So obviously this is a memorable one from Paramount Pictures, released in 1992. Obviously we all know that Wayne's World had a cult following with amusement park rides and multiple segments on Saturday Night Live. I mean, this movie definitely had a cult following. But this started it all with Mike Myers. I originally got this video at the thrift store, but it was interesting to note that it came from a McDonald's. So that was pretty interesting. And then, I think this is my only 80s film. I don't like a lot of 80s movies, guys. But this is my second 80s film. The first one is down here, and I'll show you that in a minute. But this is my first one, and obviously, you know why I have it in my collection, is Top Gun, released in 1984 by Paramount Pictures. This is actually a 1996 re-release. So they re-released Top Gun. Did I say 1984? I meant 1986. Yeah, this is a 1986 movie. And then they re-released it in 1996. If I got those years wrong, just kill me in the comments. It was either 84 or 89. See, I'm not good with 80s stuff. But there's many people out there that are. So this is a great movie either way. I love this movie. Great action adventure and obviously romance movie. Also had a kick butt soundtrack. Kenny Loggins, gotta love him. Next I have Titanic. Now this movie, oh man, I haven't reviewed this movie. I did review Top Gun. I reviewed School of Rock. I reviewed Wayne's World. I did not review Forrest Gump. And I did not review this movie. This movie is celebrating an anniversary this year. It actually already celebrated its anniversary. But this is Titanic. Basically, you want to talk about, you know, history in filmmaking. This movie is definitely a part of that conversation. It changed the way we made movies. Besides different movies at that time that were action adventure filled and were very high budgeted movies, this definitely will come up in a conversation because this definitely changed the way we made movies and how they're done. James Cameron's Titanic. I also have the soundtrack to this movie that I recently listened to that features all of the scores from this movie. Great movie. It actually has 2 cassettes, and believe it or not, guys, those 2 cassettes are the whole movie. There's no bonus features. It's literally the whole movie. So, next we have our Universal area, which includes Jurassic Park. Again, Steven Spielberg, 1993. Gotta love Jurassic Park. I mean, definitely another movie that when you talk about changing the way we watch movies, Jurassic Park as well as Titanic comes up in the same conversation, if not different conversation. I mean, you can have a whole different conversation about Steven Spielberg by himself. But again, another great movie, another legendary movie. I don't think I reviewed that one yet. I don't think I reviewed Jurassic Park. But another great movie that's not as famous, but it's still a great movie in my book. The Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps, released in 2000, and it also stars Janet Jackson, as well as Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murphy, and Eddie Murphy, being well-rounded fat people. It's a great movie. Again, it's a very hilarious movie. I love to laugh with this movie. It's great. To me, it's better than the first Nutty Professor. I don't have the first Nutty Professor, by the way, on video, but maybe I should get it. Next we have Kindergarten Cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Again, another great movie starring the man himself, the Terminator, as he teaches some kindergartners. But he's also a cop undercover. Great movie, great story, great kids. You know, just great movie. I don't think I reviewed Kindergarten Cop. I think, you know, most of my Universal tapes I don't think I've reviewed because I can't remember reviewing them. But next we have The Mummy. This is a recent video that I added in my collection this year, as well as Happy Gilmore, which you'll see in a second, which I did review. But The Mummy is another video that I added this year. I went on the ride at Universal Studios, but have never seen the movie. How ironic is that? Now I have the movie, and I can ride the ride with confidence. If they didn't take it out of the park yet. But, again, when you talk about, oh my God, this has never been done before, you'll look at The Mummy as well. Great CGI, great action, great adventure. And there's even a little bit of comedy in there, too. It's a great movie. And then finally, topping off the Universal section, we have Adam Sandler's Happy Gilmore. Already did a review about this movie. Obviously, we know that Happy Gilmore is a great movie. Recently picked this up. This is new to my collection this year. So now we're going down to our Touchstone Pictures section to the far left here. So the first Touchstone tape I have is Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Obviously, this is another movie that I added to my collection this summer. I got, I think, back in May. So yeah, it's been in my collection for a while. A great movie, definitely that represented animation history, and what animation could do and what it would do in the next couple of years. This was the first movie to do it. Obviously, we know that Disney was already doing, live action and animation for decades. But, a company... This was made by Disney, but a company... a parent company besides Disney helped make this movie successful. Let's just put it that way. It wasn't solely Disney that made it and made it great. Other people actually made it great too. Honestly, if you're an animation historian, Who Framed Roger Rabbit should be in your collection. Oh, I skipped one. We'll come back to Armageddon in a second. The next movie that was in this section was Sister Act, starring Whoopi Goldberg. And honestly, Sister Act is a pretty great movie about a group of nuns that are so stuck up, but eventually Whoopi gets them to loosen up and actually be themselves. A great movie from Touchstone Pictures. I think this one was released in 1992, I believe. Whoops. 1992. Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out in 1988. I believe 80s. Yeah, I think it was 88. The Mummy came out in 1999. Happy Gilmore came out in 96. Kindergarten Cop 1990. And then I said The Nutty Professor was in 2000. The next movie is Armageddon, starring Bruce Willis. I really should watch this movie before 2017 ends. What do you guys think? I really should. I think I should. But this is a great science fiction themed and drama-filled and even a little comedy-filled movie released by Touchstone. Has an awesome soundtrack. I am encouraging you to go pick up the soundtrack for Armageddon. It's a great classic rock experience. There's also a music video on here at the end of the film, and I don't think it says it. Oh yeah, it does. A music video by Aerosmith, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. That was basically the signature song of this movie, and you get to see the video at the end of the movie. Love watching it every year. The next one is going into our Columbia Pictures section, and this is Daddy Daycare. This is another childhood favorite. Guys, I've been loving Daddy Daycare since it came out in 2003. It's a great movie. This is the first time I heard of a man named Eddie Murphy. Now, don't kill me, don't shoot me. Over the last couple of years, last 10 years or so, I saw his other movies, Coming to America, things like that. But the first time I laid eyes on him was when this movie came out. He was already an established superstar by then, but this is the first time I heard of him. Great movie, great kids. You gotta have Daddy Daycare in your collection. I am the broccoli and don't know why. Still remember that line. Next we have Mr. Deeds, starring Adam Sandler. Again, don't shoot the messenger. I didn't know it was a bad movie until I watched it. And I reviewed it. I did not review Daddy Daycare. Did not review Armageddon. But I did review Roger Rabbit, I think. Can't remember. I probably didn't. But Mr. Deeds, I did review. And, guys, I have a soft spot for Mr. Deeds. It's charming in some sense. I like it. Next, this is a recent video that was given to me for my graduation. But this is another 80s film. This is another one of my 80s films. Again, I don't like too much stuff from the 80s, but I do have a couple of films from that decade in my collection. So far, I counted 3 of them. But this is a great film, obviously, that introduced talking babies to the world. I believe it was released in 1989, so this is a 1989 film from Columbia TriStar. Great film. The jokes are kind of cheesy, but overall, it's a pretty decent movie. This next film is definitely one of my favorites. Muppets from Space. Again, another Muppet movie. I have a soft spot for the Muppets, especially what they were doing in the 90s. It was just so creative, so funny. And so this is a great movie starring Gonzo and the rest of the gang. Basically talking about where Gonzo came from as a creature and who his parents are. And so the Muppets seek to discover that mystery that's really been a mystery for almost 30 years at the time. But it's an awesome movie. I love this movie. It also has a great soundtrack. So, again, these movies with great soundtracks, guys, pick them up. Next, another classic. It's like, again, when you talk about, oh my God, they made that into a movie and it was successful, you'll think of Men in Black. Starring Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. This is the first Men in Black with the cool holographic color-changing cover. It's awesome. At the end of it, you get a music video from Will Smith. Obviously, that's the Men in Black music video. I don't think I've seen the second or third one. I've never seen the second one in a long time, and I know I haven't seen the third one. But the first one, I always come back to every single year. Great movie. Definitely great movie. Best of the best of the best, sir! I love it. Then we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie. This was the first TMNT movie released in 1990 from New Line Cinema. So now we're going into our New Line section. I don't think I reviewed this one. I know I reviewed Men in Black and Muppets in Space. Or I think I reviewed Muppets in Space. I gotta double check my reviews on these movies. But I know I didn't review this one yet. But again, the first TMNT movie that was pretty good from Family Home Video. This was during the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like explosion, when a lot of products were starring them and the franchise, and it was actually successful. And some of it was good, some of it was downright awful. As far as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the early 90s. Let's just leave it at that. This is fairly recent in my collection. Obviously, we know this to be Now and Then, released by New Line Cinema and Turner Home Entertainment in 1995. I have this movie as well as the soundtrack. It's a great soundtrack, a lot of early 70s songs on it. But this is a great coming-to-age movie. I never reviewed this yet, and I will eventually. A great coming-to-age movie about 4 girls and their experiences growing up and how those experiences shape their lives forever. It's a great, great movie. And then again, this is my only MGM tape, and it's a good MGM film. It's Tomorrow Never Dies, James Bond, released in 1997. If you're wondering, Sheryl Crow sings the James Bond theme song, Tomorrow Never Dies. If you're wondering that sort of thing, I don't think I reviewed this one. Has a lot of great stunts, has a lot of great action, and has a pretty decent story as well. Alright, I'm going to cut it off right here and then show you guys the next side because there's more tapes over there. So, I'll be right back.